I'm Joe Lample. When I created Growing a Greener World, I had one goal: to tell stories of everyday people, innovators, entrepreneurs, forward-thinking leaders who are all, in ways both big and small, dedicated to organic gardening and farming, lightening our footprint, conserving vital resources, protecting natural habitats, making a tangible difference for us all. They're real, they're passionate, they're all around us. They're the game changers who are literally growing a greener world and inspiring the rest of us to do the same. Growing a greener world, it's more than a movement, it's our mission. Growing Power's story began in 1993 on this plot of land, located less than a half mile from the city's largest public housing project. Now, this area has always lacked access to full-service grocery stores with access to fresh produce, and yet it's lined with fast food restaurants, liquor stores, and convenience markets. And this site, it was a struggling plant nursery on the brink of foreclosure. And then along came Will Allen, a man returning to his farming roots who happened to be looking for a place to grow food indoors during the winter and sell it closer in town. With no formal plan, he told the city he'd hired kids in need of work and teach them about food systems and to grow food for their community. Well, the rest is history. Today, Growing Power is considered to be the leading urban agricultural project in the United States, and co-founder Will Allen, the hottest go-to guy in urban farming.
Growing Power, our organization, has really caught on to this movement because of what we do in terms of having this concrete example of food system. About 85% of people today want locally produced food, and they want it year-round. So what we do with this example of a food system is grow food year-round so that we can get food to everybody in our society, not just folks with a lot of money. But we've figured out a way to distribute our food to everybody regardless of their economic situation. This work that we do, I call it a revolution now, it's a movement, has reached this critical period where almost everybody is on board. And when you start seeing politicos and corporate companies and universities joining a grassroots type movement, it kind of tells you that it's an important thing in our time. Actually, my farming roots go back to when I was a child. My father was a sharecropper, but he wanted myself and my brothers to learn about where our food came from. So that's the beginning of my farming background. And then as I grew up and about to go away from the college, I said I'd never do this work again. You know, my friends are out having a good time. Went to college. My goal was to get an education and play professional basketball, which I did. And the last place that I played was in Europe, and I started hanging out with some Belgian farmers, and all of a sudden I had this urge to farm again. There was something missing in my life, so I must have had this hidden passion. And then when I got back to the States in the late 70s, I really wanted to farm. But you know, it's not practical to start farming. It takes a lot of money, so I had a corporate job and had the farming. So I kind of had two full-time jobs as I was putting my kids through school. And in 1993, I was actually driving down the street to visit one of my accounts when I was working with Procter & Gamble. I saw this place was for sale, and something made me stop. And that's when I really got in trouble. You know? In all seriousness, it was something that I knew I had to have this place. I never envisioned this becoming a nonprofit. About 2 years into operating this as a nonprofit, I was asked to help a youth group who wanted to grow an organic garden, and I had some space in the back that's now occupied by hoop houses and other things. The Milwaukee Journal did a front page story about me working with these kids, and then I started getting requests from other youth groups, and then my friend said, why don't you start a nonprofit since you like doing this work? You know? So over the years it's just grown along a continuum from me you know, volunteering back in those days to help this youth group to where we are today. What we have to do is really increase the amount of production, and to do that there's some challenges, one of which is we don't have enough farmers. So we're going to have to train farmers like we're doing here this weekend in all of our workshops and our outreach and so forth. So I look at my job at this point in my life is to pass on what I've learned to the next generation. But to do this type of agriculture, and this is important type of agriculture today from the standpoint that we have to do it more intensively. We have smaller spaces and we have to make sure we get maximum production, and to do that you have to grow healthy soil. And if you can grow healthy soil, you can grow healthy food, and if you have healthy food, you grow healthy people and community and so forth. So it all starts with the soil.
Growing Power is a place where the community can come to purchase fresh, locally grown produce 12 months out of the year, which is at the heart of Will Allen's vision right from the start. But could it still be possible today that this is one of the only places around where you can get fresh, locally grown food? Although finding fresh, locally grown produce in town can be a real challenge, Growing Power tries to ease the burden with their fresh market located right here on the property. Now the problem is demand can be so high on any given Saturday, even getting in here can be a real challenge. Now to serve the 10,000 area urbanites, Growing Power has to pack a lot into this space. And Sarah Chrisman is the facilities manager, the lead educator, and basically jack of all trades. But then again, everyone that works here is cross-trained to keep Growing Power a well-oiled machine. So there's a lot going on inside of here.
There really is. We've got our 6 A-frame greenhouses, upwards of 8 or 9 hoop houses, modular in nature, so occasionally we'll take them down if we need use of space for something else. In fact, we've got to remove a big piece of machinery. So if we have to take down hoop house 9.5, so be it, we'll just rebuild it.
Wow.
And that's part of the good use of that type of space in this tiny, small, urban location.
What about all the plants that are here? Have you ever counted how many are growing at any one time?
I'm pleased to say we got a donation September of last year. Residents, landscapers, horticulturalists collected up used pots, trays, greenhouse equipment, and did a big donation effort, a big sort of wrangling, keep that stuff out of landfills.
Yeah.
So we were able to get 7 tons of pots, just regular old pots like this, empty, ready for us to fill. We have hundreds of yards of compost. So really the measure of our success, especially with our volunteers, is we're able to get those pots into rotation. As soon as we can process them, we do them in a light bleach solution, get them filled, get them in production. You'll likely see a lot of that as we walk through. But what's in production on site here, upwards of 25,000 individual pots.
Wow.
So with these trays, there's the pots, the trays, the beds. So we've got all of these pots. We're seeding on any given day, 100, 150 trays, putting us anywhere in the range, easily 1,000 trays per week.
Wow.
That's seeding, that's not counting the dumping, filling, composting, processing, and then there's hoop houses, 4 or 5 of raised bed gardens. There's 14 fish systems in operation, so we're utilizing that maximum vertical space.
And that's just what's going on inside.
Absolutely. There's so much outside. Let's go take a look.
All right.
So in our Milwaukee winters that get really cold, we're able to keep these greens in production all winter long by use of the compost in the corners, compost around the edges. We grow worms in that compost outside, compost inside fed to the worms later once it's cooled.
And just to clarify, the reason why the compost helps warm up those greenhouses is because as it's breaking down, it's generating all that heat, and that heat is transferring into the hoop houses.
Precisely, precisely. We do have for our livestock on site turkeys. There are 5 of them. We've got our goats. The primary function of all the livestock, I'd say early on, is their manure. Turkeys we sell for meat. Goats, we sell the males for meat. The females are for rearing. That milk that we're able to get into a cheese making capacity. We've got layer hens in greenhouse 14 for eggs. Remember, all of this for manure. And then a couple of ducks and a chicken tractor on the other side of the barn, and a single old turkey.
Just for show.
Just for show.
Well, we've already learned that Growing Power takes advantage of every square inch of space, and one of the cool ways that they do that is through aquaponics. Now, essentially, that's the cultivation and symbiotic relationship of aquatic animals with plants and a recirculating system. So here's how it works. This is a big tank of fish, and the water is pumped out of this tank into these vertical beds. Now, each of these beds has a gravel base to filter out the bacteria and convert the waste into nutrients, namely nitrogen, that the plants can use. And there's also a lot of watercress in here that serves as a secondary filter. Now, the water leaves those beds and goes into the growing beds. So here's how it works. The water makes its way from the gravel bed into these growing beds, where everything from microgreens to tomato plants are cultivated. The water is wicked up, the plants are fed organically, and eventually the water leaves this bed and makes its way back into the fish tank, hence the recirculating system. But you have the cash crop from the fish, organically fed microgreens and other edibles, and a pretty good way to go, and a great use of space. From a single 2-acre site, Growing Power has grown in many ways. In 2002, they opened the Chicago Projects office to promote emerging community food centers in Chicago. The idea was to develop urban farms as community food center hubs to bring together food-related activities that are typically dispersed. Areas of focus include nutritional and public health issues, as well as food security. Will's daughter, Erica Allen, has been at the helm since the beginning. So Growing Power in Milwaukee is all about teaching urban farming systems to people all around the world that your father either pioneered or perfected the systems. So here we have the Chicago project. What's different about that that is new that can also advance that goal that you all had from the start?
Well, this, all of our work in Chicago started back in 2001. And, you know, I'm not that much different from anyone else coming into Milwaukee and being super inspired and seeing all this innovation and being able to kind of look at that as something that could solve a lot of problems of things I was doing here in Chicago around youth development and mental health and arts, and sort of, you know, trying to figure out how to really support community development in a meaningful way. And food kind of rose to the surface, especially post 9/11 and living in a big city and beginning to think about, where does our food come from? You know, I was working already with really vulnerable populations, and it's like, oh, we should have a community food center in Chicago. And so that kind of started the odyssey of, you know, developing community food system work here in Chicago and trying to do it in these very kind of unusual spaces, and being able to innovate and apply the technology that we have in Milwaukee into a different city and different space.
Right. Would you say that Chicago is more locally focused in your systems and what you're doing here with your community? It's really centered for that?
Yeah, and it's the lessons we learn here. We teach to folks in our national, international workshops in Milwaukee. So as a practitioner, you know, it's like a different way of doing education and hands-on training as we're doing it, and then we can step out of our environment and share the lessons learned from this and the other 7 environments that we're working in throughout Chicago with folks from all walks of life, all different environments, urban, rural, peri-urban, so that folks can really get rolling on having a food secure community.
That's cool. Now you guys have a lot going on, a lot of people involved, now many locations. Where's the bulk of the funding coming from for this? You're a nonprofit.
So a large percentage of our budget comes from our own efforts, and that's really by design. You know, we're talking about sustainability and really trying to problem solve around securing our cities and our populations, our communities, food systems in an agricultural system that's heavily subsidized. You know, think about big ag is all subsidized, and food production, especially small scale family farms, it's not subsidized.
Right.
So even on a social service level and engaging youth and getting folks kind of, you know, reconnected to the earth, you know, that there's an economic reality in being able to do that, and such a problem-solving opportunity to create new kind of, I don't want to say create new, but reclaim kind of former ways that we used to live. So that's a big part of our work, trying to figure out how to do it at scale, how to do it without having a lot of like upfront expense, and being able to really work with and inspire and motivate and support folks from the most vulnerable communities, being the owners and operators of these projects.
So you've come a long way in a relatively short period of time, but I know that there's so much more that you want to do. Where are you going to be in 5 years or 20 years?
Well, I'm hoping in 5 years there's hundreds of new farmers with micro to relatively robust, multiple employee urban farm operations and other related community food businesses. And I'm hoping that we have transitioned from being a not-for-profit to being a for-profit for this office, or a big part of our work, and that we continue supporting and developing and creating, just the space for new farmers to be able to get access to the industry and to be able to shorten that time frame. Like it shouldn't take a decade.
Right.
So I like to see that happen quicker, and that we really have a food secure city and a percentage of our local foods coming from our own efforts within the city.
Well, one of the best things that you've done, not only in Milwaukee but here, is to create a place that people can see that in action, because seeing is believing, and when they know that they can do it, they'll do it.
Right.
And that's what you've done best.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a team effort.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? One of the urban farm sites in Chicago is Grant Park, known as Art on the Farm. A major focus of this project is job preparedness for young people.
This here is Art on the Farm. It's early fall, and this is where everything stays strong. I'll say the best part is watering. Every day I come here, it's always something different about the farm. Everything just shoots up and grows and stays green, and that's the part of my job.
So Travion, while you're a student across the street, getting your graphic design degree, you're working here full time.
Yep.
What's the best part of working here? What have you learned that you feel is a good takeaway that you're going to potentially use the rest of your life?
I'll say managing, preparing.
Yeah?
Yeah, I say you got like a lot of unhealthy restaurants out here, and I want to learn how to grow my own food, so therefore I can stay healthy.
There you go.
And help other people stay healthy as well.
You mentioned you didn't realize how important growing healthy food was, but you've gotten a lot of feedback from people that come by. Tell me about that.
You got, as I mentioned earlier, you got people from different countries that come through here, different cultures as well, and I learned a lot through experience, and I learned from their experience. It's basically like they teach me, I teach them, and on we all trying to survive.
Yeah.
Off good eating.
Yep. Located in a part of the city lacking access to nutritional fresh food, yet surrounded by fast food, Growing Power has transformed this urban landscape. Through low-cost farming methods, they produce a wide variety of food and scores of new farmers from across the street and around the planet through its intensive hands-on workshops and internships. Since the very beginning, Growing Power has been an oasis in what Will Allen describes as a food desert. And he, along with his daughter Erica, are two farmers that are forever changing the way fresh food is grown and delivered to urban environments around the country and the rest of the world. If you'd like more information on Growing Power or anything else you saw today, we have that information on our website under the show notes for this episode. And the address is the same as our name. It's growingagreenerworld.com. I'm Joe Lample. Thanks for joining us, everybody, and we'll see you back here next time for more Growing a Greener World.